We know that the new wars being waged are far from battle zones. Cyber attacks on financial institutions, municipal utility services, ransomware, and just hacks meant to disrupt scheduled processes can plunge you into darkness, shut down services you rely upon, or bring the supply chain to a grinding halt. As much as technology makes so many facets of our lives so much easier, it also makes us vulnerable to suffering from the damaging effects of cyber attacks. This video will examine a few of the glaring vulnerabilities and how these could escalate into a major crisis very rapidly. Still, I received several emails recently asking how folks could protect themselves from the cyber attacks that are clearly going to come out of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. In this video, we're going to go into detail discussing 5 things you can do now to prepare for what will likely come next. Download the How to Protect Yourself from Cyber Attacks guide today. I'll post a link in the description and comments section below, or visit cityprepping.com/cybersafe for a free guide to help you get started on your journey of preparedness. Understand the real threat. If you only ever had a few dollars in your checking account, it's not likely anyone would specifically target you. Your account may be swept up en masse with other accounts like a school of fish trapped in the cyber attacker's net. Your ability to access your account pages on the internet or conduct any transactions on the internet may be halted. You cannot just dismiss this as I don't interact on the internet, so no big deal. It is a big deal. You might not access your accounts online, but your banks and stores often access the same systems over the same networks. The real threat to you is the larger threats that impact your life directly or indirectly. We've seen in recent years water treatment plants knocked offline because the computer systems that were operating were programmed in the late 80s. That's over 40 years of missed updates and OS releases meant to harden systems against attack. Trains, planes, automobiles, traffic systems, tracking systems, transaction systems, logistics and shipping systems, utilities, medical records, and databases at major corporations that provide you anything and everything from physical products to services are all vulnerable. We would be mistaken to think that they have invested heavily in securing their systems against outside attacks. In reality, recent attacks and ransomware attacks have soberly proven otherwise. Any one system can stop a multitude of other systems, and the house of cards could quickly come crashing down around you, bring down your grid, your networks you rely upon, or plunge the world into chaos and dark ages. It's not a pretty picture when you spell it all out, but here are the things that you can do. Number 1. Hacking starts with you. While you cannot get your region's electrical provider to upgrade their systems, you can still do your part to protect yourself from those that would exploit you and to recover your assets after systems are restored. You have to start by securing your corner of the system, and here's a quick list of 4 ways that you can do that. Update your systems and apps. If you're like me, you hate updating your systems. It's a big time suck and it can sometimes change the way you navigate or the look and feel of your operating system. Every time I update my system or an application, it's always with a deep breath and with my fingers crossed. Still, updates often result from the providing company realizing an actual or potential vulnerability. They're trying to get ahead of it with a fix. That being said, one of the largest hacks in recent history, the SolarWinds hack, was through an update on systems. That hack impacted numerous companies, even the Departmental Office's Division of Treasury, home to the department's highest-ranking officials. The best way to update your systems is to go to the sites that provide you the software and actively seek out their check for update pages. Do update your systems in this way if you're running old operating systems or frequently use the same apps. You can bet that the company is shutting down vulnerabilities as they find them, but you leave your door unlocked if you don't update your system on a regular basis. Password 1234. Update every one of your passwords right now, especially if you use the same password wherever you can. Second, stop using the same passwords. Many critical systems have 2-layer authentication, PINs, biometric, password vaults, or authenticator apps like Google Authenticator. It's a hassle for sure, but you need to take advantage of these protections. Not using them is like buying locks to your house but never installing them. When you make a password, take advantage of all the numbers and special characters available to you. Make it complex and avoid any familiarities. Many years ago, I had a simple password that was associated with various online accounts, which, had any one of them been hacked, could have been used to hack my other accounts. Please do not use repasswords. For very important accounts, I sometimes even put the password on paper and store these in my vault. If you have it in an electric file on your computer or thumb drive, make that file password protected as well. Run something like Google Account Password Check. This will inform you as to which passwords may have been compromised. A password checker will also tell you where you're reusing passwords and where your passwords are weak. You may find some old accounts that you just don't use anymore. Shut them down and delete your profile. At the very least, make sure that they don't share email addresses and passwords with your critical accounts. Finally, get in the habit of changing your way too complex to remember password on a regular schedule, like every 3 to 6 months. I recommend a paid tool like LastPass.com or OnePassword.com. I've used these services over the years to secure passwords, and they have tools to alert you if there's been a compromise. Update account profiles. Have you moved or changed cell phone numbers or email accounts? If you have, you want to update all of your account profiles online. Even if you haven't, you still want to do this. This keeps you one step ahead of any hackers who may have already acquired your information but don't know how to use it, or anyone who's lying in wait for official orders like a sleeper cell. Switch to online banking and cash. It may seem counterintuitive to protect yourself from cyber attacks by switching to online banking for some of your transactions, but you protect yourself a bit from fraud when you do. This is a 360-degree approach to your fiscal survival that also means you should have your assets spread out to survive significant calamities and minor infractions. If you still send paper checks, realize that you're sending account details, addresses, names, and routing numbers through the mail, handled by many hands and potentially stolen right out of your or someone else's mailbox. At the same time, most banks offer online bill pay that connects right up to the provider's account. Companies that don't have an account can often be issued and mailed a check right from your bank. Shift the liability over to the institution in charge of keeping your money safe. Limit the exposure of your information in the world by focusing it in with your online banking. Let them handle the security. This is not to say that you shouldn't have cash on hand. When it all goes down and systems fail, you'll be glad that you've kept $300 to $600 in low denomination bills. When your check or credit isn't accepted, your greenbacks may still hold perceived value. Number 2, finances. Let's assume for a moment that a more extensive cyber attack has occurred against the financial institutions or the Treasury or the banking system as a whole. When it comes down to getting your money back, at what point in the line are you compared to the millionaire across town? The bank is probably still going to want whatever payment you owe them monthly, but they're not exactly going to prioritize your savings account. In a more significant economic collapse, your currency could become worthless. However, I think debt collectors would still call you even knowing that the currency and economy have tanked. Even after a significant cyber attack that brings the partial grid down, finances are still critical. Assuming systems will eventually be restored, you'll need some records of what you had where. From bank accounts to credit card statements to loan papers, you will need to prove what was yours and what was owed and what was owned. My survival binder that comes with my Prepper's Roadmap course has some of this information in it. But for the specific instance of making it through and restoring your life after a more significant cyber attack on fiscal systems, have these things in place. First, have recent pay stubs and banking statements to show the regular patterns of your income and expenses and balances. Also, have printouts of the first page and balance statements of major accounts updated with some regularity. It'd be nice to prove that you lost everything in your IRA or 401k if you ever have to do that. If the attack leads to a grid down, partial grid down situation, or even just significant supply chain disruptions, you will want to have between 300 and 600 or more in denominations of $20 or under. Even if the dollar is worthless tomorrow, it will retain some value for those who hold on in the hope of a recovery. Even if it doesn't get that bad, cash is still king, as they say. That store is likely to do small transactions for you in cash, even if the point of sale system isn't working. You are instantly trustable to them with $40 in hand, whereas that piece of plastic that doesn't work doesn't lend you any credibility in their eyes. Build your bartering skills and network. Sure, now you can buy a few dozen eggs at the grocery store for a few dollars, but what will that do when the egg ranches go offline? You'd be much better off if you knew someone with a few chickens and you made something, hunted and processed game, or had some skill or knowledge that you could trade for a dozen or more eggs. You'd be even better off if you had a few chickens of your own and thereby had a commodity to barter with in fresh eggs. Understand the value of things and skills when the ordinary means of measuring value, your currency, is worthless. I'm not a financial consultant, and I do not give financial advice, but I will tell you this final point on your finances, and that's to lock up any abundance. If you have thousands in savings, it is losing money for you every day, whatever that paltry interest rate you're getting on it. Inflation and deflation will make it worth less in the future than it is right now. Far better would be to use it to pay down your mortgage, your debt, or your car. This converts your money now into future money, provides you resources now and in the future, and takes it off the table when cyber attackers rob your institution where you keep it. You could keep it under your mattress or in a wall or buried in a mason jar on your property as your great-grandparents did. The problem with this strategy, though, is that it's just sitting there losing value. That's everything I will say about your online presence and your finances here. I'll leave the rest for the free download. Here, I have to discuss something more germane to your survival. No talk of protecting yourself from cyber attacks would be complete without addressing what you need to truly survive these events: water, food, and energy. Number 3. Water. On a planet that's blue from space because of the amount of water, it's important to realize that only 0.3% of it is drinkable. Of that amount, much of that will still make you sick from viral, toxic, or bacterial contaminants. I cannot stress the need for water more, especially with the type of disaster that comes with cyber attacks. These large-scale operations are on infrastructure targets because they cause the populace the most chaos, pain, immediacy, and anxiety. Still, most people are entirely reliant upon their municipal water sources. These big companies that control the flow of water to your tap have made it illegal in some states even to put a rain barrel under your gutter to collect water for your lawn or garden. These are also the same companies that have spent so little on hardening off their systems that they're running Windows 98 to mix the proper chemicals to treat your drinking water. The water system is incredibly vulnerable as it is, and more so because so many are utterly reliant upon it. At the risk of repeating myself ad nauseum, take steps now to store 3 months of drinking water for each person and pet in your home. Beyond that, have the means to filter and treat the water you collect from the wild. Many will die of dysentery in their very private lakeside communities in grid-down situations. Others will be so desperate for a drink of water that they will steal it from anywhere they can get it. Don't depend on getting the water you need to survive from the government relief truck that may or may not come into your neighborhood with drinkable water for the masses. It might not come. It might not have enough for you after the thousands of desperate people clamor to get theirs. Survive a large-scale cyber attack by having the water you need to survive stored up in your home. Cans and bottles of water from the store to replace your flowing tap will be the first thing depleted and looted from these stores. This is a small thing. When we look at it now, it's a small task, but it will rise to a matter of life and death at the moment the grid goes down in even a partial way. Number 4. Food. Just like water, you need food to survive a large-scale cyber attack that could render the supply chain from farm to table useless. Corporate farmers might have bigger hearts than the corporations they answer to, but they don't own that grain or that harvest. Here's another example of what I mean. In the recent shutdowns from the pandemic, millions of people are no longer eating out. The demand for potatoes, for everything from fries to chips, plummeted. Did those farmers process those potatoes into dehydrated mashed potatoes? They didn't have the means to do so. Even the companies that do, they didn't have the means to process that overabundance. Did they give the potatoes away? In some cases, they gave tons of them away to local residents. And I don't live near a potato farm, and you probably don't either, so I didn't get any of those free potatoes. You probably didn't either. In many cases, the farmers dug giant pits with costly backhoes and simply buried all those potatoes and wrote off the loss. Your food supply chain is vulnerable. From production to logistics, there are many exploitable points along the way. So, what can you do now? First, start by storing enough food to get you by for an incredibly long period. Know how to cook it when the power goes out. Canned foods are great and not as susceptible to inflationary forces in the short term, but they come with an expiration date. Dehydrating food will give you up to a year on that expiration date, sometimes longer and sometimes shorter. Knowing how to can or pickle food can not only extend shelf life, but provide you with a useful skill when your refrigeration no longer works or you are collecting your own food. Freeze-drying your own food or buying freeze-dried food comes with a heftier price tag up front, but can give you meals that will taste fresh and last for 25 years or more. I cannot imagine what 20 pounds of beef will cost in the year 2047. It might cost the same as a freeze dryer purchase today. It might seem odd to fight a cyber warfare by growing your own food, but you need to start a victory garden of your own, either on your land or someone else's. You need to know the edible plants in your area, and you need to know how to preserve, freeze dry, dehydrate, and pickle every single scrap of food you acquire. Get to the point of zero waste. If you only grow patio plants, at least it's something. It may not sustain you entirely on its own, but it will stretch and supplement your foods. It will give you something to trade and barter with. Build a supply of shelf-stable foods. It might not end up being enough to keep you for months or years after a significant breakdown of systems, but it might be enough to help you survive through to a better day. The ultimate goal is always self-sufficiency, of course, but that isn't always a possibility for most on limited land and with limited resources. Focus on your 3-week, 3-month, and then a year or more supply like I outlined in my Prepper's Roadmap course and work from there. Number 5. Energy. There are other pillars of survival that I could cover, but water, food, and energy are the 3 biggies when it comes to insulating yourself from cyber attacks. That is because these 3 pillars of survival are often the most vulnerable systems that we have exposed to cyber attackers. When it comes to energy, I mean all forms of personal energy that you use. If the grid goes down tomorrow and remains ransom for weeks, or systems are simply destroyed by hackers, your problems become much bigger than flipping a switch and realizing the lights are out. Your phones will be down. Security systems will be down. Medical, EMS, fire, and police services will all be down. All form of utilities beyond electricity will eventually be down. Even natural gas isn't a magical delivery system of flowing air. It relies upon pumping stations monitoring equipment. Some of these run generators on the natural gas they produce, but the same isn't necessarily true at the furthest points of the capillaries from the pumping stations. Water is often fed to communities through gravity from those massive hillside water towers. Still, those are replenished and continually filled by electrical pumps that push the water up to them. When the energy stops flowing, just consider that all systems as you currently know them will eventually fail. I don't have a well or a natural gas main. I don't even have a forest nearby to provide me and everyone else with burnable wood. You need energy from refrigeration to charging radios, flashlights, walkie-talkies, or reusable batteries. At the very least, you need some biomass energy to boil water you obtain in the wild. You may not be in a position to install a home power solar system and battery like I just showed in a recent video. I'll post a link to some solar generators I would recommend that I've recently reviewed in the description section below. I would recommend that you watch the video I created a few months ago to help you determine your power needs. If you haven't watched it yet, I'll post a link in the cards in the description section below. Definitely start there. Simply having a gas generator as a backup won't be enough after 3 months when gasoline is scarce. You might be surprised with how little you need to get by, but the energy provides us light and heat when properly harnessed. Do you have any hurricane candles, a means to heat or cool your living space? Do you have the means to cook and purify water for 3 or more months? Don't overlook your energy needs. Look at it from all angles and make yourself as infrastructure independent as you can for the longest amount of time. You'll find more information on what you should be preparing for in the free How to Protect Yourself from Cyber Attacks PDF, which you can download via the link in the description and comments section below. I want you to have a solid printable version of it all in hand, and feel free to share the link with other family members, co-workers, or friends to help spread the word about preparing for cyber attacks. Now, if you look at the long arc of history and you look at how recent global upheaval has predictably panned out, you'd be foolish not to brace for even more tribulation and chaos. We're engaged in what only can be characterized as World War III. And I can't imagine that when Albert Einstein said, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones," that he ever thought one of the weapons of World War III would be cyber warfare. Yep, here we are. We've already seen the weapons wielded in many ways over the years, from individuals to state-sponsored operations. Many cyber groups openly threaten to attack one side or another. And this isn't a question of if, it's just merely a question of when. And I'd like to say that things will get better tomorrow. I'd also like to say that the price of gasoline will one day go back under $2. And both statements would probably be lies, or at least gross underestimates of the realities that we're now facing. And many cyber attacks have already been launched since the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, and many more are to be expected. Most people will be blindsided when one of these attacks impacts them directly. Some people will even criticize the advice and explanations that I'm giving here as simply fear-mongering. And you know what? That's okay. You don't have to be most people if you start diligently and methodically preparing today. I tell you this because I'd like to think that I'm helping a few people make it through to better days and prevent many from experiencing loss when the inevitable comes. What do you think? What's the most vulnerable system you see, and how are you addressing that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I try to read the comments and respond to them when I can. That's typically within the first hour of releasing a video. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you'd like to be notified when I release a video, and give this video a thumbs up to help the channel grow. As always, stay safe out there.